So I'll let you have a little
Yes.
breath for a moment whilst I just kind of introduce this webinar to everybody. It's our monthly webinar where I invite a special guest to join us to kind of share their work and their journey, and they're kind of donating their time and their wisdom and everything. So I really appreciate you coming, Selene, and doing that with us. Selene is from vibrantlyalive.me, and I've been sharing lots of links and information about her over the last month, and I'm just going to share quickly a brief kind of overview of the mission of Vibrantly Alive, which is to inspire and support personal and social growth through the development of skills in empathy, communication and non-violence. Selene aims to empower individuals, couples, parents and activists through revitalising their self-love and enjoyment of life on Earth. That's quite a mission statement. And Selene herself is a coach and facilitator specialising in radical love, non-violent communication and spirituality. She has a certification through the Centre for Nonviolent Communication with 4 years.
No, sorry. Let me just clarify. No, I'm a certification candidate, so I hope to be certified by the end of next year.
Sorry, guys. So. She is a certification candidate through the Centre of Nonviolent Communication, and she has 4 years experience as a private practitioner of nonviolent communication and 10 years experience in teaching. So Selene also has a BA in community studies, where she was first introduced to nonviolent communication, and a lot of her background is in women's spirituality and in supporting herself and others to develop a unique and personal relationship with divinity. So I have had personal experience with Selene. I did complete her Developing Self-Love Through Nonviolent Communication course, which was an 8-week online course, and I really do highly recommend it. Selene is very interactive and extremely organised, and makes everything very digestible for you, and is very generous with her time and her knowledge. And the way that you teach is just, it's really easy to relate to, and you're very authentic, as in you share a lot of your own personal journey. And I think that that's really great, that it seems to be that you're walking your talk, and you're seeing your own personal growth as something that you're continuously working on. So I really respect that. And I also had worked with Selene many years back when you were working with the energy of compassion, which I find it really interesting that you've chosen or been drawn to or have been picked to work with these specific energies and really retranslate them for us. So I'm just really thrilled that you're here today, and I'm wondering, how are you?
Thank you so much. Yeah, my heart is really touched just to hear all that. It's one thing to kind of write a mission statement on a piece of paper and put it on the internet, but to hear it kind of read back to you, my heart's really touched. I do really want to help personal and social growth. And I do really want to help couples and activists. And I do really want to share how these tools have helped me enjoy being alive.
Right.
So I'm just feeling, my heart feels really touched, and I'm really pleased to be here and really grateful for the opportunity to share with people who may not have heard about these ways of being and these tools. So I'm really enjoying the opportunity.
Wonderful. And we're
And
enjoying it too.
yeah.
So I've kind of done my introduction of you. I wonder if you might like to kind of do your own introduction of you, maybe share a tiny bit of the journey that's brought you to this work.
Yeah. Well, like you mentioned, I was first introduced to nonviolent communication about 10 years ago, almost longer now, when I was studying community building in college, and we did a kind of a one-day workshop introduction to nonviolent communication. And I remember thinking, oh, that's really interesting. But at the time, I lived in kind of a bubble of people who were really conscious and aware and careful with their communication. So I didn't really take it very anywhere. And then a few years later, so ago, I got married. And I didn't just get married, but I got married across cultural differences and a language barrier, and we had been long distance for 2 years, and then suddenly living together and married, and had to figure that all out. And so a few months into being married, I was like, what was that thing? What was that I learned about nonviolent? What? And maybe I need that now. So I returned to nonviolent communication as like a strategy to not get divorced.
Oh yeah.
Yes. So then I reread the book several times, Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg, and I started trying to apply it just between my spouse and me, and then did that for about 2-ish years, and then I started going to workshops, and I really just dove in, and I noticed a difference. My communication with my husband is like, it's not like we don't have fights now, but it certainly frequent, and they are it's easier to repair afterwards, instead of being angry for a week, it's maybe 20 minutes or an hour, or we are more understanding of each other. It used to be I would think that there was something personally wrong with my husband.
Right.
And now I think to myself, oh, well, what time did he go to sleep last night?
Right.
Was he, up working until 3 a.m. last night? And is that why maybe we're kind of bickering right now? Or the reverse will be true, where my husband will say, if I'm kind of grumpy, he'll say to me, hey, when was the last time you ate something?
Right.
Right. Are you grumpy because you're kind of hungry and you just forgot to eat lunch? And whereas we used to interpret that as, not that maybe they have these other things going on, but that there's something personally wrong.
Right.
And we need to like work it out, but maybe we just need to eat something.
Right. You've learned how to identify each other's needs, and
yeah,
that kind of takes you to whole other levels. It's not actually reacting to the behavior anymore, it's kind of responding to the need beneath it, which is so much more constructive. And one of the things that was really powerful for my own relationship with my own husband, same thing, different cultures completely. It made me need to up the ante with my communication, and I realized, and the first time I got to apply the nonviolent communication work that I had learned with you, with him in a situation, and could see how transformative it was in our communication, it really did, well, it grabbed my attention, and I realized that this was a whole new level for us. So I think this is great for every relationship, with yourself obviously most importantly, but it does ripple out all around you. And definitely for couples, you know, to be able to have sessions and stuff together with this modality, I think is just wonderful that it is out there, you know, and that's why I support raising awareness of it for sure. So yes.
Some of the benefits that I've seen have been not only so, you know, my motivation for kind of diving into NVC, you know, years ago was to support my relationship with my spouse, but some of the unexpected benefits have been my relationship with myself is so much easier to navigate. You know, I have more tools now for how to handle my feelings, how to kind of understand what's going on inside of myself. I have, I think, a more clear lens to understand just my daily experience. Like my anxiety is lessened and easier to manage when it does happen. You know, social awkwardness, for example, is easier to navigate now, as well as then my relationships. So even with my parents, for example, being able to listen to political views that I may not agree with, being able to hear with empathy, even though I don't agree with people, you know, that's been really powerful. And also just being able to kind of be alive at a time where there's difficult things happening around me, and how to face that feeling of powerlessness and maybe feel more empowered to not only to understand what's going on, but maybe to be able to take some actions that might be more grounded in what's real.
Right. Yeah. Completely. And definitely one of another valuable thing I think in what you're teaching is just kind of allowing people to identify their needs. For one, actually, just let me backtrack, allowing people to acknowledge that humans have needs and that they're universal between us. I think that's, you know, it sounds silly, and I know that we know it, but we don't live it, you know. So actually being okay again with everybody having needs, with myself having needs, and being able to see that and honor it in myself is just, has definitely been able to help me do that for everybody else. And again, no matter what they're saying or what their beliefs are, whether I agree with them or not, to just be able to see underneath that they're trying to fulfill a need and they feel that that's the way for them. And you know, it's not for me to really judge or say, you know. So it's interesting. And then allowing myself to see my own needs there too. So that's kind of like the first level one, you know. We need to be able to recognize this before we go from any further from here, you know, and to be okay with that.
So just to clarify, one of the basic principles that what Frankie's talking about is that we say that we all have the same human needs, which on one level, you know, that's not new information. We've been talking about needs for a while now, and people generally accept that everyone needs food and everyone needs water and everyone needs, you know, shelter from snow, and that we do have some basic things that we need in order to survive as a human. And then we include not only those physical needs, but we also have social needs. You know, we need connection, we need community, we need closeness, we need touch and warmth, and we also need a sense of purpose and meaning in life. So we have these range of human needs that contribute to not only our survival, but also to our well-being. And there's a lot of research coming out now that looks at how those social needs are necessary for physical well-being, and we say are as important as the kind of more physiological needs. I read a book that cited in a study that said that, as an example, you know, not having an adequate social network is as bad for your physical health as smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day. You know, or I saw, my husband just sent me a link to an article that said, had compiled like 150 different studies that showed that having just a few good close friends would kind of increase your physical well-being, increase your health and your longevity even. So, you know, yes, we need food and water, and also we have these social needs. And so what we say in NVC then is, everything that anyone says or does is an attempt to meet a need. And the invitation, when we practice this as kind of a daily practice, like a spiritual practice or a yoga practice, you know, something that we do on a daily basis, is to start to notice our needs consciously, and to things that we're saying or the things that we're doing, and what need it is that we're trying to meet, and then to maybe consciously choose a strategy to meet our need that is in everyone's benefit.
Right.
So when we say, you know, that, you know, my parents maybe have political ideas that I don't agree with, but with empathy, I can try to hear, well, what need do they have? What's their universal human need that's behind these political ideas?
Right.
And then if I say, oh, okay, well, you know, for example, safety is a really big human need, and I think that the need for safety is what's motivating some of the political ideas that I don't agree with. But I also do have a need for safety. So when I look at someone and I think, oh, well, you know, that's someone with political ideas that I don't agree with, I find it really hard to feel compassion for that person. But if I look at someone and I think, okay, well, this is a strategy that they have to meet their need for safety, and I wish they would maybe choose a different strategy, or I don't enjoy the strategy that they're choosing, but I see that they're trying to meet a need for safety, and I also have a need for safety, suddenly it's a lot easier to feel compassion or empathy for them.
Right. Completely. It's a paradigm changing for people when you start flipping the script like that, you know. So I'm just going to note to our audience, feel free to add in any comments or anything that you kind of want us to answer or want guidance with, because we'll check them out at the end of the video here and try answer them as best we can for you. So anything that kind of comes up for you, feel free to put a comment in the box down there for us. So so I'm interested to know, what does empathy mean for you? I mean, how would you?
Yeah, well, according to NBC, we say that empathy is a human need. So just like food and water, or the need for connection or support, we have a need for empathy. And I think it's often a need that goes unmet. One way that we can look at what is empathy is to look at, well, what isn't empathy?
Right.
And Brene Brown talks a lot about empathy. If anyone wants to learn more about empathy after this, I really recommend anything by Brene Brown.
Okay.
So if we contrast empathy with pity, for example,
Right.
you know, pity is, I feel sorry for you. You know, you have a friend who's telling you something going on for them, maybe sharing some pain that they're carrying, and our response is, I feel sorry for you. You know, that's pity.
Right.
That's not empathy. You know, and if we contrast then sympathy, so in NVC we say sympathy is when you start to personally identify with what someone is sharing. So someone's telling you about their pain and it starts to remind you of some of your own pain, or you start to think, well, how would I feel in that situation? And then so we're not really thinking about the person that's talking to us anymore. We've started to connect with our own response and our own feelings, which is not, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not empathy anymore. So what we say that empathy is, I like to use another word for empathy, could, I think, be presence, you know, just being with someone, right? Being with the person and being comfortable to not try to fix them, you know, to not try to give advice, to not say, well, if I were you, I would do this, or to not say what you should do is this, or certainly not to shut down feelings by saying something like, oh, well, other people have it worse than you, or it could have been worse, or you're overreacting, or all of those other things that we usually hear. And instead, we're just present with whatever it is that that person is sharing. We're not necessarily like diving into the pain ourselves, but we're just with them. So it's a big difference from I feel sorry for you, or if I were you, I would feel really angry, to just, oh, so that's what's going on for you.
Right.
Yeah. Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
I think it's something that a lot of us are actually really seeking when we're sharing what's going on in our lives with a friend or a relative or someone that we're close with. I think a lot of times really we just want to be heard, you know, we just want to be, we don't necessarily want someone to solve our problems or to analyze us or to tell us what's wrong or all of that. We just want to be heard. You know, we want someone to hold space for us while we're sharing. And there's something that really cool that happens when someone listens to you with just presence.
Yeah.
So to me, that's what empathy is. It's listening is one way that we meet our need for empathy. There's other ways you can kind of self-empathy. You can check in with yourself, which is kind of what I do regularly. But really, it's just, hey, what's going on inside this human?
Right.
And can I hold space for that without judgment or without trying to fix them?
Right. Which is huge, you know, that sounds so easy to say, but oh my gosh, I remember you setting the task in your group to not try and fix anyone for a week. Don't give advice, I think it was. Don't give any advice. And I'm thinking, my husband regularly tells me off because I am the more masculine out the two of us. If you come to me with a problem, I'm immediately shooting out 10 different solutions for it. And he says to me regularly, like, you know, I really don't want to be fixed right now. I really don't want to hear those things. I just need this off my chest. I just need you to listen, and I'll feel better. And so, yeah, like you said, it's transformative when you do. It really is. You can really, it allows them to really work through it. And I remember somebody teaching me EFT, and she was saying, you know, when people are trying to work through emotions, a lot of the time what we want to do is hug them, which is quite normal and okay. I'm not saying don't do it, but she was saying it kind of stops their flow. It stops them from being able to process the energy themselves. You're kind of helping them with that energy. You're protecting them from that, but at the same time, you're not allowing them to truly work through it and process it themselves. So I actually did put that to work in. I had a really traumatic event, and I decided not to allow sympathy and pity and people trying to hold me, and I needed that energy to work through me freely, and for me to be able to integrate everything by myself. So I think it's kind of along the same lines, in that we truly do integrate things better when we're allowed to do it by ourselves, when we haven't got somebody telling us which way to go and how to think and how to feel, instead just being a witness for people to express themselves. So
yeah, and I noticed Willow Wand shared what her kind of definition of empathy. She said being present, hearing, one step in with them, one foot out, hearing and paraphrasing. Yeah, I think those are all kind of ways to offer empathy. I've been playing around with just like silent listening,
right.
just being a container to receive, whatever is going on for someone, and maybe some kind of,
Right.
So I don't know if my microphone is picking up those kind of sounds that we make, just to let someone know that you're still there with them.
I know, because I've noticed there's that, sorry to interrupt, but there's always that pause where people are waiting for you to respond, and I'm sitting there going, nope, got nothing. Keep going. So
yeah, well, it's such a relief. Like, I don't have to have the answer.
Right.
Yes. You know what I mean? Like, there's kind of this pressure and this expectation. I'm supposed to have an answer, or I'm supposed to know what to do, or I'm supposed to, help this person, and it's actually a really big relief to realize, actually, I don't have to know what to do.
Right. And then also this reminds me
the solution.
Exactly. And it reminds me of advice my father had given me, which was don't give advice or don't give the information unless they ask questions. So again, when you see how powerful it is when somebody actually comes to you and says, Frankie, I really need your opinion or advice on blah blah, and how much more open they are to what you're saying in comparison to you just shoving your opinion down their throat when they're just trying to share something that they're trying to work through,
Yeah.
So
yeah. There's a quote from Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of NVC, saying, never give advice unless you have a written letter from a lawyer. and even then.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good practice for people, trying to, withhold yourself and refrain from offering advice. To maybe just try it with your partners or someone that you're close with this week, and just see how that works.
Yeah, my suggestion. Here I am. We're saying don't give advice, and I'm about to give you advice about giving advice. But my suggestion is, and one of the most powerful things that has really helped my relationship, has helped my marriage a lot, because I used to get really upset when I had something heavy on my heart that I wanted to share with my husband, and he's coming at me with solutions, and I haven't even gotten to the thing that was actually the issue. I've only done like the context, and I'd get so upset, and I would just say, just listen to me, and he would come back with something like, well, if you come to me with problems, I'm going to give you solutions. It was not good. Then he's angry, I'm upset. It's never good.
It's messy.
So what has really helped my relationship, I know, right? I know, I feel like I'm your husband and you're my husband.
Right. I get that a lot.
So what helped a lot was when I realized, I think I was actually at an NVC workshop where I was learning, and someone said that you can ask how you want someone to listen to you, so this was like light bulb moment.
Right.
So you mean that I don't start immediately just launching into some heavy something in my heart and just expect that my husband is going to have the capacity to listen to me exactly how I want to, and I didn't even tell him exactly how I wanted it?
Right.
You mean there's an alternative, right? So the alternative is ask, hey, I've got something on my heart, and I'm wondering if you have the space right now to listen to me kind of without telling me what you think I should do. Like, I just want you to listen quietly and just hear me. I really just need to be heard right now.
Right.
Can you do that? And then actually giving space for the other person to check in with themselves and to say, well, can I actually right now do that?
Right.
Because you know what, as compassionate as I like to think that I am as a person, it doesn't mean that at the drop of the hat I can, you know, have the mental space or even the emotional space to always be that container for someone.
Right.
And so my husband has actually been practicing honesty and checking in with himself, and he'll come back and say, you know what? No, I can't. If you give me problems right now, I'm going to try to solve them. And then I'll say, okay, I will talk to someone else about it, or we can talk later about it maybe. And then a few hours later, my husband has maybe settled down from work. Maybe it's like 8 or 9 o'clock and he's not so kind of wound up anymore. And then he'll kind of say, you said you had something you wanted to talk about. And I'll say, yeah. And he'll say, do you want to talk about that now? And then I'll say something like, can you listen without giving me advice? And he'll say, yeah, I can do that now.
Right.
You know? And then it's beautiful, and I'm not upset or angry afterwards, and it doesn't turn into a fight about nothing. You know, I share what's on my heart and he just listens because I've let him know that that's how I need to be listened to. And then other times, sometimes I do want advice. Sometimes I do have an actual problem and it's not just an emotional reaction that I need to be heard. I really want some suggestions. And so then I'll come to my husband and I'll say, hey, I've got something going on and I would really enjoy your opinion on this. And I'd love it if you had any thoughts or solutions or suggestions. Do you have time or space right now to talk about that?
Right. And it's a real journey of getting there as a couple, because I remember, you know, my husband is very good at saying, you know, I need to unload, you know, can you not react? And I'll be like, yeah, I can. And then he starts talking and I can feel myself like reacting inside, and you know, just like you, I think, oh my god, I'm a compassionate person, I'm a good person. why am I going crazy right now? Right? So it takes a lot of retraining of yourself. It's not like, oh, we just decide this and this just happens. It takes a bit of working through. We definitely get triggered. It's hard to hold that space for people. Like everything, it's practice that makes perfect. And if you've got two people in the game that are willing to play the game, you're fine. It's just, you know, trial and error. But definitely for myself, I so struggle with that, with the, you know, not giving a solution and not advising. I just always want to fix, you know, whatever it is. And it's not helpful.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's helpful when that's what they want, right? In that case, they themselves have decided, I really want some advice on this.
I said to my husband, I do it for a living. It's hard to snap out of it.
Right. It's so true. It's, and those are people who've come to you, and that's what they're seeking. Right. And it does, I think you really said it there. It is a practice, you know. I practice empathy just like I practice yoga. You know, you don't go to one yoga workshop and then stand on your head.
Right.
You know, it's a daily practice. And so on some days, I have a really great capacity to receive and to hear people, and to be present with them. And then on other days, maybe I didn't get enough sleep the night before, or maybe I'm under a lot of stress my own self, and I just don't have the same capacity that I do. And I think that that's actually really beautiful and part of the work, to do that self-awareness, that self-connection, or self-empathy. You know, what am I feeling right now? What am I needing right now? Do I actually have mental and emotional space to hear someone so deeply right now? Maybe I don't. That's when I would hope for the honesty, for someone to say, you know what, actually, I don't think I could listen so deeply right now.
Right.
You're really important to me. Can you bring this back to me later today or tomorrow or sometime soon?
Right.
You know? Or then maybe, this is when it's really important to have more than one person in your life.
Right.
If I bring something to my husband and he doesn't have mental space or the emotional capacity to hold space for me the way that I need it, if he's just not in the mental space to listen to me with non-judgment, which is what I'm really looking for, this is when it's really important that he's not the only person that you have to go to.
Right.
Call your mom, call a friend, um, journal, give yourself the space. I think a lot of conflict comes when we are so attached to this one way of getting our need met. And
Right.
this one person is going to be the person who's going to solve my need for companionship for the rest of my life. Or this person is the person that's going to listen to me. And if they don't listen to me, then I just don't have anyone to listen to.
Right.
I think that's where we get into conflict, or that's where we really get into pain. And so if my husband doesn't have the space, I message a friend, or I call my mom, or I, journal,
Right. Right.
or I paint, or I do something else. There's many different ways to meet our need for empathy, to meet our need to be seen and heard. Um, and I think that's the goal, right? So to be conscious about how we're contributing to our own well-being by asking from other people, and by having many different ways to do that.
Right. And I want to rehash that, because that was another really powerful thing for me, is having a conversation with you
Mm-hmm.
about a need that wasn't met for me. And you said to me, well, where was it getting met in your life? And immediately I'm like,
Mm.
oh, it was, but I'm wanting it to be met from
Mm-hmm.
here and not looking at it being met over
Mm-hmm.
there. And we have so much
Yeah.
expectation of our partners to be everything at any time we need them to be, whatever thing it is we need. And that's a
Yeah.
lot to put on someone
Mm-hmm.
and yourself. And so to
Mm.
allow
Yeah.
allow them that space to not be there for you to be able to work through it yourself, or be able to call on somebody
Mm-hmm.
else for that particular need to get met. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think that that's a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
The point
Mm-hmm.
is your need being met? If
Yeah.
the answer is yes, well then
Mm-hmm.
how you get there is unimportant,
Yeah.
you know. So letting go of that
Well,
attachment.
we do have yeah. Well, I think I want to notice that, we do have favorite ways, you know. So I have a human need for closeness and connection. And, my favorite way to meet that is, snuggles with my husband. That's, I really love to have touch and closeness and connection met in that way, and safety and intimacy and all of those wonderful needs that are met through snuggling. Um, but sometimes he's out of town.
Right.
That's not, so then am I not going to have any touch at all? Am I not going to get that need met in some other way? I can
Right.
have a massage. I can see a friend and have some positive touch in that way. Or, I can give myself closeness by maybe doing art, or all of the other ways. I think the key is, that conscious awareness,
Right.
to see, this is the thing. I'm feeling kind of ungrounded because I really haven't had positive touch in a few days.
Right.
Okay, well, what can I do? How can I give this to myself? It's our responsibility to meet our own needs, and having those needs met through connection with others. That's a question, that's a request, that's, hey, I have this need for closeness. Do you want to watch a movie with me today? Or, do you want to, go out for coffee? Whatever that is, I'm asking,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And if you say no, that's okay. We can find it somewhere else.
Yeah.
So one of the ways to do that, that I wanted to touch on, is we've talked a little bit about empathy. And sometimes it's a little bit easier to think about what is empathy when we're thinking about with another person. So you have a
Right.
friend who has pain, and you're talking over coffee and they're sharing that with you and you're being present with them, you're giving kind of the gift of your attention and your presence. And you're trying not to judge them, you're trying not to fix or jump to solutions, you're just being with them. And then there's this thing called self-empathy, right? You know, how can I ask my friend to help me meet my need for closeness if I'm unaware that my need for closeness is going unmet, you know?
Right.
So that's the of actually having a daily practice or minute by minute practice, you know, when you're upset, to actually check in as much as possible. Hey, what's going on inside myself? What am I feeling right now? What am I needing? Am I noticing judgments going through my mind? And just to connect with that and to be present with yourself. And this has been so transformational for me because I lived a lot of my life numb, you know, and just kind of surviving day to day. I remember most of my was in front of a cartoon, you know, so this practice of self-empathy has helped me so much to know how to, I mean, be alive, to not be afraid of feelings, to not be afraid of conflict, to not be afraid of this daily human existence, and instead to just, hey, I'm having some sensations. Like right now in this exact second, my right foot is tingling. I've got pins and needles because I've been sitting in one position. You could say my body has a need for movement.
Right.
I need movement, you know? And there was a time where I would have ignored that and just talked to you. But because I have this practice of self-care and self-empathy, I actually noticed, oh, I have, you know, pins and needles in my leg because I've been sitting still. And I'm allowed to shift, even though people watching this video might see me and think, oh, what's she doing? I don't know how you're gonna think about me moving around here. Like,
I think you should just shake it
humans
out.
need to move.
Shake it out.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, right? So everybody wiggle in your seat.
Well,
We all probably need to move around a little bit. Too. And I just think that we're so socialized to be polite and to think about what other people might be thinking about us, that we are ignoring these very human things. You know, my body has needs. My inner world is asking for things, and it's asking for things every day, all day, every second. There's something going on inside me. I have feelings. I have needs, and there's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, if I didn't have needs, I'd be dead.
Right.
If my body didn't tell me that I'm hungry, I'd be dead. Right. And I think it's the same thing with social needs, or with the need for creativity, or the need for self-expression, the need to have a sense of identity. You know, there's so many parts of being human that we've been socialized to, you know, put on the back burner. Right. Because maybe other people's needs are more important, especially for women. We've been socialized other people's needs are more important than ours. Right. And then what? We end up kind of going through life bored, checked out, addicted, you know, whatever it is. And so that's why I decided to name my work in the world Vibrantly Alive, because through this practice of self-empathy, through this daily practice of working with the principles of NVC, I feel more alive. You know, I feel more in tune with just the daily experience of being human. Right. And, you know, I wake up and I don't want to just go back to sleep. I mean, okay, some days I want to go back to sleep. Right. But that's because I have a need for rest. And I say that to myself, okay, I want to sleep for another hour because I have a need for rest. And there's nothing wrong with me for that. Right. You know, where I say to myself, oh, I want to maybe invite someone out for coffee because I have a need for connection and companionship. And there's nothing wrong with me for having that. been liberating. It's been liberating for my own self-judgment and my own self-criticism to connect through self-empathy with my human experience.
Completely. And you really help people with the needs cards that you have created. Selene's done like a template of these different needs in a card format for you to kind of concentrate and focus on a need at a time. I don't know if you're still doing your needs cards challenge, but at one point Selene was also doing, you know, she would prompt it to you and then you'd be kind of identifying that need for the week and maybe creating your own card and stuff. So I thought that was very helpful for people, because it's hard to know where to start with your needs as well, you know. So being able to go to that card deck, which is freely downloadable on your website, I think, for subscribers, you know, is really good to be able to prompt yourself. And it's amazing how the universe kind of conforms afterwards, you know. It's once you've identified what one you're going to work with, it's like everything about that comes up that week, you know. And it's amazing. And again,
it's kind of the magic of it, right?
It's like the universe supports you in doing that, in identifying your own needs, and definitely wants you to be meeting them and fulfilling them. So I like that. It's like the universe is conspiring for us to have all our needs met, you know. And it will show those signs if you when you want to start working with them. So that template's out there. Sorry, carry on.
You should be able to find them on my website. I just wanted to share, it's really difficult to consciously take actions to meet your needs if you don't know what your needs are.
Right.
So that's kind of the thought behind that. And I have a lot of ideas about how to make that accessible, easy for people. So you should be able to find that on my website. Those need cards to download. It's been really transformative for me just to kind of get to know what are the universal human needs, how do they show up in my life. I have a teacher who said, be the need you want to see in the world. And I kind of experimented with that, and I think it's exactly what you said, you know. Like, for example, I have a strong awareness of my need for community. Has been largely unmet in my life due to having kind of a nomadic life and moving a lot, and really having a deep longing to belong somewhere and to have a sense of being part of a community, as more than just friendships or acquaintances, but like shared work, you know, working to shared goals, or, you know, knowing your neighbors or whatever it was. So I did kind of an experiment on myself a few months ago where I said to myself, okay, this month I will be the need for community. And just to see what happens. And I ended up talking to my neighbors. So I live in an apartment building, but there's only 4 apartments. It's just 2 floors, 2 on each floor. And I could go 6 months and not see any of my neighbors. And I saw all of my neighbors on the same day. It was kind of crazy because there was a fire.
Oh, okay.
So it was like days after I decided to like be the need for community, just to kind of embody the need for community. There was a fire, not in my building, but like very close to my building. So we all evacuated at like 6 a.m. one morning. And so, hey, I saw all my neighbors.
Right.
You know, and we ended up chatting. Everyone was talking, and there was definitely a sense of community in the sense that people were checking on each other and like making sure that everybody had got out of their apartment. And then I ended up, because of that, because we saw each other, making plans to have coffee. So then, you know, 2 days later, I had coffee with my downstairs neighbor, who's kind of an older lady, and that was really nice. And then because of that, I chatted with other neighbor who then came over to my apartment like 2 weeks later for coffee, and I have greater connections now with the people living right next to me because there was a fire like a few buildings away, you know. And ever since then, there's this beautiful sense of at least knowing each other a little bit better. And I think maybe because we're bringing these needs into our awareness, because we're noticing them more, we it's almost like maybe we put it out there a little bit more, you know. So my need this month that I'm really thinking a lot about is connection. I'm thinking a lot about connection, and what am I doing in my life to contribute to my need for connection, and how can I offer that to other people, you know, maybe through presence, through empathy, through sharing, through asking, through offering, you know. And so I made a list in my journal of different ways that I can meet my own need for connection. And then look what happens. I end up getting more phone calls from family than I normally would. I've got, you know, invitations to spend time with local friends here where I live more than I had before. And I literally just wrote it down.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's intention is powerful, and I talk to our group a lot. I mean, we practice it every week about setting our intentions, and meeting the need is setting an intention, you know. And it does. It's just amazing how everything unfolds and supports that. And it resonated when you said about the fire bringing your community together, because it was the same with a hurricane here. We'd literally just moved in, and I didn't know anybody. This hurricane happened, and everybody knows everybody now. And there is this just sense of community and connection. And, you know, I know that I was putting that vibe out very strongly because I'm wanting to integrate into my community and meet more people and know more people around me. So again, you know, I'd been putting that out there, and it's like the universe kind of supported that idea, kept us safe, but it made us all realize how important, you know, we were, and that it's good to have that sense of community around you and not be you know, 6 months apart from seeing your neighbor in passing. So yeah, it's wonderful how it unfolds. So fully support people really looking into what their needs are, and also, you know, sharing this with children, you know, because the more that we embody this work, that's where, you know, our kids are obviously learning through what we do. And if we can give ourselves these new tools for communication, then it's going to help them as well. So so I'm wondering if you want to talk about how you feel empathy is healing.
Yes. So first of all, it's healing, I think, in a couple different ways. Often because it is a universal human need that is often unmet, having it met is in itself healing. Just like when we have a need for connection or a need for community that is maybe unmet for a long time, and then to really feel that need being nourished, how good that feels. That can also be really healing, especially if it's a need that was unmet in childhood, and then to have it met as an adult feels really healing. But specifically, I do think that just generally we have a need for empathy that largely goes unmet. And so I think that when we are heard with empathy, when we are received with non-judgment, without someone telling us what's wrong with us, without being diagnosed or analyzed or fixed, or told that we're broken and that we need to be fixed, you know, that in itself is so powerful. And I did think of an example to share with you. And I think it's something that we all kind of experience, and that maybe even that we think is nothing, you know? So have you ever had something from your past just kind of come back to mind for you, just randomly? Like, I had something that happened when I was a teenager, and then over the last, 10, 15 years, I don't know, how old am I now? Over the last 10 years or so, just it would randomly come to me.
Right. Yeah.
Just would randomly like pop in my head. I'd be like washing the dishes or something, and this memory would like replay in my mind.
Right. Yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
does that
Yeah.
sound familiar to you?
Yeah.
Well, I I would suggest that is a situation in your life that when it happened, um, was maybe painful and didn't receive the sufficient empathy that you needed for that pain. And so your brain is actually trying to help us receive empathy for that pain by replaying it and kind of giving us another opportunity to hear it with empathy. And so I had a situation that happened when I was a teenager that I had some pain over, and it would come back to me every so often. And I would really judge myself really harshly. I would kind of think, well, this is what I should have said at that time. And then other times I would kind of judge myself even for remembering it. And I would kind of say to myself, why is this even coming up? This is not a big deal. This happened ages ago. I just need to get over it. Generally not responding to my own self
Right.
with kindness or empathy, which I'm sure none of you do that.
It's so funny
Right.
because and I'm sure everyone who's listening can think of something in their life, because I have a very very strong one that's come back and is reminding me, wow, okay, you really need to give yourself some love there. It is reoccurring. It does come back often. I do always shove it back and away. And yeah, it isn't being heard, and it's definitely empathy that's my own self-empathy actually that's lacking, because I'm beating myself up for it. So, and I'm sure everybody's got something like that, and maybe doesn't realize that it's coming back over and over because you need some love there.
Yeah, it's it's pain that is unresolved, I think, because it hasn't received sufficient empathy. And so I think this is where we start to get into how empathy can be healing, because when that pain is heard with empathy, with enough empathy, maybe it needs to be heard a couple times, with this just beautiful non-judgmental presence, you know?
Oh, sorry, something just fell off my window. It scared me.
Oh, are you okay?
Yeah, it just made me jump.
Um, when this pain is heard with non-judgment and just being received, for the experience that it shifts,
Right.
and it's no longer pain anymore. It's not so. So what happened for me was I took this experience, this memory that kept coming back, to one of my very first NVC practice groups that I was attending a few years ago. I brought it in, and we did an activity with this as an example for practice.
Right.
And it was practice. It wasn't even real. It was just practice. And yet there's something about being seen by, 6 people, being heard and seen with non-judgment, sharing my story, what had happened briefly, and it shifted for me, where now when I remember that, I don't feel pain about it, because I connected to the human need that I had that was unmet in that experience. I connected with how I was feeling now in the present moment about that happened. And there were all these eyeballs that I was making eye contact with, all these people just listening to me for maybe 45 minutes. And there was no judgment. They just received me, and it shifted. and I expressed the pain. I cried a little bit. And then, that was almost 2 years ago now. And it's not like this comes back when I'm doing the dishes anymore. This memory doesn't replay in my head anymore. And instead, the memory has been replaced by this memory of, oh, I had something happen and it hurt. And I was just asking myself to notice that it hurt and to let that be okay and to hold that with compassion and empathy. And then it doesn't hurt anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And so for me, I think that's how empathy is healing, because a lot of what's going on for people is unresolved pain. And it doesn't have to be a big deal. It doesn't necessarily mean you need medication or a therapist. And I think this is when we can start to be empowered as individuals to just listen to each other when we have pain, to stop analyzing each other and to not try to fix each other because we're not broken. I think so many of the problems that we're having is unresolved pain that is shoved down, is pushed away, is judged or analyzed as something, personally wrong with me, where any human in a similar situation would probably feel very similar to how I felt, because it's human and we're human and we have similar needs, we have similar feelings, and there's nothing wrong with me for experiencing pain when I have an unmet need. And so for me, empathy is healing because we are just meeting each other as humans, having a human experience. And it's normal to have pain when our needs are unmet.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful and healing and liberating and enlightening to just be seen, even by a group of people. How powerful. 6 people hearing me didn't judge me, just listened to me and saw me and were present for me and what was going on for me. So powerful. What I would wish for the world, that we could have a safe space, a small group of people where we could just bring our pain and let it be seen and heard and not judged, and we can experience our own somatic shift in our bodies, and then we don't have to replay it over and over anymore.
Right. Completely. And I've really, just in this conversation, I'm feeling myself shift on my own acknowledgement of, the lack of empathy in the situation. And it's amazing just being able to apply it even to yourself, having that acknowledgement. I mean, obviously being able to share it with people is even more amazing. But, a lot of healing can happen just in our own recognition and allowing ourselves that empathy and recognizing that we were trying to fulfill a need at that time. So yeah, definitely very healing experience. So how do you practice empathy?
I think initially, really, it's. I think, like you mentioned, intention. For me, even though there might be some techniques or some different ways so that we might listen, like reflecting back what someone said, or even silent listening can be considered a technique. I think it starts just with the intention to be present with someone.
Right.
So sometimes when I'm deciding to do empathy, I actually consciously decide, okay, I am going to just be with this as much as I can. And it's almost like a meditation practice, because my attention might wander. I might start thinking about my list of things to do, or I might start thinking about whatever comes up for me when I hear the thing that they're saying. And I just bring my attention back to that person, just like we might do in a meditation where we're sitting there, we're meditating, and our attention wanders and we just kind of bring it back. For me, it's almost like a meditation practice, a practice in presence. But this time, instead of only being present with what's going on in myself. I'm present with this person in front of me.
Right.
Unless I'm doing self-empathy, and then I'm present with myself. So whatever it is that you're doing, if you're driving or listening or even with a client perhaps, or a student or a spouse, it starts with that intention just to be with someone. This is a beautiful human being in front of me, and I'm a beautiful human being, and I want to be present with them.
Yeah.
So for me, that's where it starts.
Right.
Yeah.
You set that intention.
And then there's some things you can do.
You set that intention.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then after the intention, then there's some things you can do, like choosing to maybe be silent a little bit longer. If you have the urge to give some advice, try to catch it before it comes out your mouth.
Right.
I've been experimenting not with complete silence, because sometimes that's uncomfortable for the person. We're just so used to hearing each other, but maybe just being quiet a little bit longer. Or even if the other person pauses, I've been experimenting with just being quiet just a little bit longer. And then, wow, people actually have more to say that maybe wouldn't have been said if I had started to say something.
All right.
And now that's not for every conversation, just when I have that intention of being with someone. Yeah, so I think that would be just the two really simple things that we can do. I can decide. And then other times, maybe it's a random person that I don't really necessarily want to be with, and then I don't set that intention. I try to be really honest with myself, or I might be really tired, or I might say, now's really not a time for me right now. So I think that comes with that that honesty, self-care, and not pushing myself, oh, I want to be a good person, I'm going to try to listen to you with empathy right now.
Right.
I really want that honesty and that authenticity and that self-connection of saying, I actually don't have the capacity right now, so I'm going to be honest.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that would be what I would suggest for now.
Very, very helpful. Great starting point for sure. And I'm wondering if we have any suggestions for you of how to kind of. We've already kind of. Have we covered the suggestions?
Yeah,
to take over into your daily life? Yeah,
I think so.
Okay.
Well, I would just want to reiterate maybe. So it's a conscious intention, and that we can ask if we want someone to listen to us without giving us advice. Right. Remember that you can ask someone you can tell people how you want them to listen to you. Yeah. And the other side of that is you can offer
not to be in that space for you.
Yes, exactly. And have more than one person that you can ask. So if they can't handle it, you've got a list.
Right.
So maybe actually make a list of people that you could ask to listen to you without giving you advice or trying to fix you. And then the opposite of that is also true. If someone comes to you with something, why not ask them how they want you to listen to them? Hey, are you just kind of wanting me to listen and you just need to rant and get this off your chest? Or are you kind of wanting input from me? Right. Are you looking for suggestions? And then that person might not have even thought about it. And then they can come back and say, you know what, actually, I really would like some advice on this. Right. Or they might say, actually, just being listened to right now sounds amazing. I would really like that.
Right. That's, yeah.
So you can ask and you can offer.
Yeah. That's great advice. Really great advice. I don't know if you wanted to do any demos with me or what you feel.
I think we've kind of
covered a lot of stuff. We're doing
I think that if we started a demo now, we might go over too long. Yeah.
I'm trying to see the comments actually to see if there's any comments that we have.
I think there was one question about Facebook. Willow Wan asked, because of social needs, do you think Facebook has helped fill this need for some, or is it a false sense of friendship? That is a deep question.
I
That is a real deep
would
question.
expect nothing less from Willow.
Yeah, and that's something that I find really close to my heart because I have to admit, Frankie, I feel a little burnt out on social media
Right.
because I've lived such a nomadic life in my 20s. Basically, no exaggeration, since I graduated from college, so since 2008, probably 90 to 95% of my social interactions have been online.
Right.
And it's just, I feel so burnt out on it. If I could throw my computer out the window right now, I probably would.
Right. Right. And
So I do think that social media or Facebook in some ways meets some of our needs, but I don't think it meets other of our needs. And I think that that might be why we have a sense of connection, but also maybe not quite the quality of connection that we're looking for, you know? So, yeah, I can send someone a message through Facebook Messenger, but I can't see their facial expressions or hear their tone of voice. And I certainly can't get a hug or touch, or I can't just sit next to them and do two different projects together. You know, that's one of my favorite parts of close friendship, right? Is just to sit next to each other and do different things,
right.
but just to be next. So I think that, I guess the short answer would be, I think it does fulfill some needs. Like it does make organizing easier. You know, it does make sharing baby pictures easier. But does it really fulfill my need for companionship? No. Does it really fulfill my need for touch? No. Does it fulfill my need for closeness? No. So I would say some needs, yes, and other needs, no. And I think that because it does fulfill some of those needs, it might be less obvious that some of the other needs, like companionship, touch, closeness, shared work, you know, purpose and meaning, that some of those needs aren't being met. And we might not notice that because some of the other ones are.
Right. And
So
I
personally,
definitely,
I have a real deep longing. Yeah.
I agree.
Go
And
ahead.
I always have to be very conscious of that in myself as well. To always have that balance. And, you know, I say to a lot of people that social media, Facebook, internet, it's a tool and it should be treated as such. You're not going to get all your needs met from social media. No, but the balance of it is wonderful because, you know, on a positive note, in times of feeling very cut off and disconnected, not having people of like mind, being able to do a video call with somebody in Australia from Facebook or whatever has been really helpful and has given me that sense of community and stopped me from feeling alone, you know, because I don't get that sense of like-mindedness around me, whereas, you know, not in my physical community. I mean, they're all wonderful people. I love them and we can all have something in common, I know. But sometimes you have to go find your community and people of like minds, and that's where it fulfills it for me. But I am not under the illusion that you know, it's the same thing. You still want to hug, you still want to stand next to somebody or sit down and make dinner or whatever. So it's just it's making sure that we have that awareness, because and even asking that question to ourselves: where am I looking for connection? Where am I getting connection? Have I got this all in balance? And that would change a lot of things for so many people, because so many aren't even aware that, you know, they're trying to get all their needs fulfilled online, when really community is what it's all about, and being at ground level. And you know, I had done a project a weekend or two ago with a local church, a Baptist church. And I'm thinking, oh God, don't ask me any questions. What am I doing here with this group? But you know what? We all had a common goal, and that's what we were there to do. And it really didn't matter what our beliefs were, or where we came from, or anything like that. You know, a common goal brings everybody together. So I think it's very healthy for us to do things like that. You know, force yourself to be with people that you wouldn't usually be with, you know, and allow them to be who they are, allow them to have their own beliefs, and don't feel the need to force your own on anybody, you know. I think the more we can hold that space for each other, the better, you know. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, shared work is a human need, you know, working to some goal together. That's something we actually need, and it's something I really enjoy experiencing. And you definitely don't have to. I mean, when I was studying community, we called it, you know, it's called barn raising.
Right.
You know, back in the day when you needed to build a barn, everybody, all your neighbors would come and help you build that barn.
Right.
And you don't have to agree. You don't have to agree with everything your neighbor believes to help them build a barn.
No.
And that's something that I would really like to see more of. This idea, this working together as a community, even if we aren't necessarily like-minded, because you may need a barn today and I may need a barn tomorrow, and I sure would love to have your help.
Right.
No.
Right.
So I'd like to see I'd like to see more connection, and I'd like to see more conversations with people we don't agree with necessarily, and I'd like to see more valuing of each other, and to be willing to connect in person. Yeah, that's what I'd like to see.
Definitely.
So I hope that answers that question about Facebook and social media. That was a really enjoyable question. Something I'm thinking a lot about right now.
Yeah, Willow's good at tapping into our psyche. I think that was it for the questions.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that, and I think that we've done good for time. I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to add in, or whether we've covered everything that you wanted to.
Well,
huh?
I could talk all day.
Yeah.
I could talk all day.
I could too.
But I think for now, I feel pretty happy with it.
Yeah. Same here. And I'm really grateful for you.
Yeah. I think I just wanted to mention that I do offer free consultations if somebody wanted to, you know, connect with me, maybe through my Facebook page, or through my website. Feel free to, you know, drop me a note and we can find a time to chat if anybody wanted to see how, you know, NVC coaching or how session, because I do offer transforming pain sessions, which is kind of what we talked about a little bit, of just being heard and received. How that can just be so healing. So if you'd like to experience a free 30-minute consultation, drop me a line.
Yeah, definitely. I recommend that you at least, at the very least, subscribe to Selene's website, vibrantlyalive.me, and I'll post the link for everybody. And yeah, definitely check out all of her courses. They're very easy to digest, and you know, it's just as easy as doing these interactive calls. You know, it's not, once you get over the little technical part, it's fine. But Selene's a lot.
Isn't that the way it always is?
Selene is way more organized and very professional. And
no.
Yeah, the material.
It's an illusion.
is wonderful. So yeah, please do head over to her website, like her Facebook page. She's also on Instagram, and she's living in Dublin right now, and she's running all kinds of workshops. So if anyone from in or around Dublin feels drawn to holding a workshop or meeting Selene in person, I'm sure that she would be well up for that. Yeah, I wish you so much luck with all of this work. I will continue to promote it because I think it's wonderful. It really has helped me, and I know that it will help so many other people. Just keep going with it. I'm loving seeing it just blossom and grow and turn into its own thing, really. So keep going, Selene. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I so enjoyed being here and just sharing what's on my heart. I had a really good time. Thank you so much for the invitation.
No problem. Okay, everybody, thank you for being here. Anyone else who's watching later on, just drop us a line if you have any questions, and have a great day. And I'll be in touch with you soon, Selene. I'm going to end this. Bye.
Thanks.